Hello and welcome to your weekly tarot forecast for the week of October 6th through October 12th. I'm Michelle Shea Walker, and this is your glass half full perspective for the week ahead. If you're a paid subscriber or if you tipped your reader this week, stick around until the end where we'll do a personalized reading drawing and we'll see if you won. And if you're not one of those things, know that every single week you have the opportunity to win a one-on-one reading in this screen, in this video with me by simply supporting this channel. Before we dive into the reading, I'm going to do a little bit of an overview of the week ahead as far as the energy goes. And I'm feeling called a little bit to rely less on sort of a breakdown of the astrology and the tarot cards and more on like a broader strokes intuitive channeling of the information. I do consider myself kind of a teacher of all the things that I talk about here, which is why I do try to break down the astrology planet by planet and, all of the energies like I'm teaching you a lesson in tarot or astrology. But I do feel like it does kind of get a little overwhelming and a little muddled. So if you're just here for the messages, this is a good reading for that. I'm going to focus more on the message than the actual occurrence of the astrology, though I will still mention a few things happening. I also want to mention, just for those of you that are Substack subscribers, that there are several different categories to this Substack. And this Astro Tarot Forecast is just one category that you can subscribe to. If you are a subscriber, you usually are automatically opted into the monthly newsletter and these weekly Astro Tarot Forecast videos. If at any point you want to turn either of those off, you can. But do know that I also have two other sections that aren't automatic subscriptions, and that is the advice and essays section where I do my advice column, and then also the brand new home and DIY section where I give you a little Substack version of my YouTube channel, Home Half Full, which is currently a lot about cat stuff, but it's about my home decor. It's about DIY. It's about living sustainably, economically, creatively. And I'm going to be doing some subscriber home makeovers and things like that in the future. So if that's the type of thing that interests you, the most recent video was Taylor Swift themed in honor of her album release on Friday. And I talk about my favorite cat products for your home. So if that intrigues you, know that you can at any time navigate over to your profile and click on or off any of the sections that you want to see more of or less of. And I believe, at least in my screen, this is how it works. If you have already subscribed and there's a little subscribe button on this posting, it will be sort of like blurred out or like vagued out. Or if you go to the home page, there'll be a subscribe button that's sort of like lighter. And if you click on that, I believe it takes you to your profile if you're having trouble finding how to navigate to these notification settings. But also you can navigate over to your profile, click on this blog, and click on or off the notifications. It's a little less intuitive than I would like it to be. And I might even start doing sort of a instructional video on the about page just so that you have a little reference for it and a visual. But know that that is always an option to turn on or off the different elements of this blog. But either way, whatever you're watching, whatever you're reading, whatever you're here for, I'm so happy that you're here. And we are going to dive into the astrology. And I'm already sweating. So I may have to turn down my AC. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And there's no way to pause this. So just hang on just a moment. Okay, hopefully that will click on soon. It is still like third summer or whatever we want to call it in Chicago. And this t-shirt is covering a little too much. And I always get a little hotter when I'm channeling information. So bear with me because it's not clicking on even though I knocked down the temperature setting. So let's just all take a deep cleansing breath together to start this week. So take a deep breath in and deep breath out. Okay. We're diving into a week that is not overwhelming with the big grand things. We do start the week off with a full moon in Aries, which is a great place to kickstart some projects, kickstart some ideas, kickstart a relationship. But overall, the astrology isn't like the big grand like movements of planets that we've had in previous months. Something that is happening as sort of an overview there's a lot of Venus occurring this week. And Venus is getting ready next week to move from Virgo into Libra. And so the intuitive sort of conversation that I got for myself and looking at all these Venus meetups between the planets and movements around is that it's almost like Virgo, which is very organization focused, getting things done focused, is trying its best to encourage us to get some stuff done while we're still in this sort of more organized mindset around love and beauty and even abundance and finances before we move into Libra, where it gets a little less grounded. Libra's an air sign. Libra is known for being about partnership and balance and union. So we can get a little more caught up in sort of the fantasy of romance or even the fantasy of abundance and the American dream. And there's good elements of it as well because it is balanced. So you can learn how to kind of balance out these things like work and home and money and love and whatever it is that you're finding balance in your life. That also happens in Libra. So it's good stuff, but it's not so much like nose to the grindstone. Let's like accomplish something as Virgo is. So I'm getting it big for particularly the financial aspects of Venus because Venus is our abundance, our sense of luxury, calling an abundance that creates a life that has the finer things. And it feels like this last week of Venus and Virgo is giving us the opportunity to really refine and structure and really organize our financial life so that we can enjoy a little bit of that work-play balance as we move into Venus in Libra. If there's anything you've been putting off in your budgeting, in your financial life, I know myself, I need to go back through and do my business spreadsheet for the past couple of months because I've been putting that off. Like if there's any of the like nitty gritty kind of boring details of your financial life that you've been putting off, this is the week to get it done. It's also a week to wrap up any loose ends. If you have any bills that you need to pay, if you like whatever, like outstanding fines, things like that, take care of them while Venus is in Virgo because it feels a little more. Essentially, the energy I'm getting is that Virgo is working more for your benefit, whereas Venus in Libra, we could get a little caught up with sort of like the people pleasing or trying to sort of accommodate other people, both emotionally and financially, more than is actually good for us. So get it done this week where the focus is more you. And then again, once you have those finances organized and you kind of know what's happening in your financial life, you know what's happening in your budget, you can then find that greater balance with Venus and Libra. And if there's a start of a relationship that comes around, or if there's a lot of social events that start to come into your life, you know what that structure is that you're working with because Venus and Virgo helped you set up the structure. And then you can have a little more freedom to play because you know what the structure and what your limitations are. So that's the energy that I'm getting from that because, again, it's the last week of Venus in Virgo. Venus will meet up with a couple planets throughout the week. These are all elements of this conversation of get your stuff together financially and do it for the sake of eventually being able to have fun, but know that it may not be the funnest. It may not be the most fun week in regards to trying to get everything organized. But it's like any system of organization, once you go through the nitty-gritty of, making the mess and putting it back together, then from there forward, things get easier. But that moment of organizing everything isn't the most fun, although I find it fun most of the time. It could also be with your home and aesthetic. So it's a great week to do some of the type of stuff that I will be talking about on my Home Half Full YouTube page, which is about reorganizing and restructuring your home to better call in abundance or partnerships or whatever it is that you're trying to do. And I honestly will be talking about this more on the channel, so I'm not going to go off on too far of a tangent, but doing it in a way that's sustainable and doesn't make us feel like we need to overconsume. There's this sort of like de-influencing element of things that I'm feeling in the vibes and trying to cultivate in my own life. I personally just recently organized my storage unit, and my natural impulse was to think that I needed to go out and buy a bunch of pretty matching storage containers, and it's a storage unit in my basement. I'm the only one that sees it, and as much as I am a fan of creating every element of your life to spark joy, even for yourself privately, I did not need to go out and buy new containers. Just the fact that I got everything organized was good enough. So work within the structure and confines of what you have, but make it as organized and as beautiful as you can. And that includes, like I said, the financial life and your home, the beauty that surrounds you. Could also be a fashion aesthetic as well. Like maybe it's a good week to go in and edit your wardrobe and kind of put together new outfits and like revamp things, because Venus and Libra definitely likes to like go out and be seen and flirt with people. So like you might want to like feel your most presentable and best as far as what you're wearing and how you're presenting yourself to the world. So that's another element of this last gasp of Venus and Virgo. And then that's actually a really great example of the creating the structures so that you can go have fun, like put together the outfits now so that whenever these social engagements come about and you want to go out and you want to be admired, like you already have everything, you know what works for you, and you've put those systems together. Okay. Let's see what else. We've got, like I said, the Aries full moon. And that is very much about like every full moon is kind of the calling in of manifestations from the previous new moon 6 months prior. I did not check if the previous full moon, I don't think our previous full moon was an eclipse because it hasn't been in Aries. So we maybe did some manifesting in the Aries new moon, which happened back in, that's a great question. What was 6 months ago? April, maybe? So look back at whenever the Aries new moon happened. Okay, Taurus new moon was in April, so it must have been back in March. Pause for verification. Yes, new moon in Aries was March 29th. So if you want to look back through journals or just things that you're planning and wishing for around the end of March, that's the type of stuff that could potentially be called into your life underneath this Aries new moon. Or at the very least, it's a good moment to re-engage with what you were wanting 6 months from now and double check to see if it's what you still want. So, I mean, yes, there is a like element of magic when it comes to manifesting with the moon, but I like to think of it more from a practical standpoint rather than thinking of it as like, oh, I made a wish 6 months ago and now it's time for that wish to come true. It's like, no, this full moon is a great time to check in to see if any of those manifestations did come true. And if they did, awesome. But if they didn't, one, are they still something that you want? Because there could have been a sort of like rejection is redirection, and that's not actually right for you. And you didn't know enough 6 months ago to know that. Or two, have you done anything in your life over the last 6 months to make room for the things that you wanted 6 months ago? Because we still have to make action. We still have to create the energy in our life that calls in that abundance, that job, that partnership. So, what have you transformed over the last 6 months that was heading towards that goal? And if you still want the goal and it hasn't been called into your life yet, what can you tweak and what can you continue to do, or how can you up your game in those areas to potentially call it in a little faster? So that's what we're kicking off with Monday. So hopefully I'll timestamp this back to when I started talking about that full moon. But if not, hopefully you're watching this whole video anyway. So we had the weekly overview. As we dive into Monday, we've got the aforementioned Aries full moon. We also got Mercury moving into Scorpio, planet of communication, planet of sort of like the underbelly, the occult, the, subversive. It's great preamble to spooky season that we've got this sort of like communication planet going into the sign that is known for kind of connecting to the other side and the underworld and the shadow self. So, if you do like a little like divination or connecting to ancestors or spirit guides or pulling up the Ouija board, which I have mixed feelings about. However, I did just have one brought up from my parents from my childhood. So it is in my organized storage unit. Connecting to the unseen could have more potential with Mercury in that sign. So that's kicking up on Monday as well. And then we also have one of our first Venus things happening, which is Venus sextile Lilith. So Lilith, again, is the dark feminine, regardless of what your gender that you relate to is. We all have the feminine and masculine within us. And the dark feminine is just the aspects of the feminine that society deems inappropriate. And they're sextile to one another. So they're coming together in a really supportive, conspiratory energy. And again, with Venus, it's like we have the lighter feminine and the darker feminine, and they're coming together and they're like, okay, how can we work together? And again, this is also keeping in mind that Venus is still in Virgo for this next week. So we're like, okay, how can we use this darker and lighter feminine energies to organize and create structure around our money, our aesthetic, our love life, our creativity, so that we move forward. That's another big element that I didn't mention when talking about Venus earlier, that it is about creativity as well. So when we have this Venus and Virgo energy, I'm getting big hits for myself, but also for the collective, that this month in particular is about putting structures into place and integrating the routines that are going to get you to where you want to go with your manifestations, but especially with your creative manifestations. So if you're a creative type, and I'm guilty of this myself, that's kind of like flitting around and just waiting for inspiration to strike and not having a lot of structure around that creativity, this is the month, but especially this is the week to create that structure while Venus is still in Virgo. In Tuesday, we have I didn't even talk about the card. Monday's card is really fitting for sort of like manifesting, planning things. It's the Seven of Cups, but it's the Seven of Cups reversed. So this could be a sign that sort of the manifestations from 6 months ago when the Aries new moon was happening on March 29th, is that what I said earlier? End of March, are potentially coming true, because when it's upright, we're making the manifestations. When it's upside down, it's several things, but my interpretation of it today is that those manifestations could be coming to fruition. Or it also could be the other thing that I said, and that if they're not coming to fruition, you're re-examining your way of going about calling in those energies. Are you living a life that embodies the person that you want to be when those manifestations come in? It's such manifestation 101, and we hear it so often, but it's so important. And I have to remind myself of this every day as well. Like, when you think of your dream life, there's a version of you that you're seeing in your head. And ultimately, there are things in that dream life that are not matching what you're doing now. And sometimes we write it off as like, oh, well, then I'll have more money so I can do this, or then I'll have more free time so I can do this. And it's like, no, the way you call that energy in is creating that abundance and opportunity and free time and what have you in the moment when you think it's less possible. And then you create that habit, and it just grows and grows and grows over time until that's your natural existence and you become the person that you see in your head. So that's also what this energy is. It's tweaking the way of going about calling in the energy that you want if you haven't seen results yet. Moving into Tuesday, we have Mercury square Pluto. So again, planet of communication. Pluto's the change maker, the disruptor. They're not working well together right now. So it's not a great day to try and communicate to the outside world your plans for big change, or for the global stage, people coming together and negotiating or communicating about something that's supposed to be about change. It's not going to be a day that people are hearing each other right. So we might see this in the news as well. But for your personal life, because micro affects the macro, be aware that you may be making changes that are more internal. And it's not necessarily the best day to tell people these plans, just because they're not going to be in a place to receive them in a way that you need them to. So just keep that in mind. However, the card of the day is the Ace of Pentacles, and this is a really good energy for calling in new opportunity. So I think that your internal reflection and the work you're doing in your own private life could potentially be unlocking this potential for money, business, even if you're trying to manifest like a secure family and home life, that could be Pentacles as well. But especially with money and business, if you're trying to call in something new and fresh and exciting and potentially like the next big thing for your life, Tuesday has really primed energy for that. So I encourage you to really, again, get clear on what it is that you're tweaking in your manifestations and the way you're calling them in on Monday, because Tuesday could be a good opportunity either to have an idea for a really great business or money making scheme, or to have someone offer you an opportunity. So don't let Mercury square Pluto keep you from having the conversations if something comes in or if the impulse is there for you. Just be mindful that it's not something you necessarily want to like splash across social media, because the world at large might not be ready for your plans. But secret or private conversations are still available. So if someone reaches out to you, or if you feel an intuitively impulse to reach out to someone else, there could be a little private conversation that is the seed for a really great idea moving down the road. It's just not ready to be revealed to the world just yet. It's like, there's like a metaphor that wants to come through in regards to Taylor Swift releasing the album. Like, it's like recording the album. She's not going to leak the music until the album is out. And I have mixed feelings about this album. I'm a Swiftie, but I'm not without opinions. But anyway, point being, I was just saying that because I'm like, I know that I've talked about Taylor Swift like twice during this reading, and I'm not trying to like drink the Kool-Aid or have you drink the Kool-Aid, but that was a really great in the zeitgeist metaphor for this idea. This is like the writing the music, the recording the album, but not wanting it to leak to the world until it's complete and it's ready to be seen in its entirety. Moving into Wednesday, we have the moon moving into Taurus, which again, the moon moves signs throughout the entire month. It's not that big of an energy, but if you do have a moon in Taurus, you might find that you're a little more emotional on this day. Or even if you don't have a moon in Taurus, you might be called more towards like cozying up in a little cocoon and nurturing yourself with food and, staying close to those that you love. We also have Venus, more movement with Venus, sextile Jupiter, planet of expansion. They're coming together. They're conspiring. So we conspired with Lilith earlier in the week, and the Venus, the palatable light feminine and the dark feminine came together, and they're like, what can we do to like put things in order and get things ready while Venus is still in Virgo? And now Venus is coming together with Jupiter, and it's like, how can we expand? How can we use the things that we've learned while Venus has been in Virgo, and how can we expand upon it? How can we go bigger? How can we go greater? How can we dream more? The card is the Five of Pentacles reversed, which I really love for this conversation around abundance that we're kind of starting to have here, because the Five of Pentacles upright would be feeling a little stressed about your finances, a little out in the cold, a little not sure where to turn for your next paycheck, for your next abundance, for your next great idea, whatever it is. Reversed, those worries are starting to end. They're coming to an end. You're starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. So there is an element of Wednesday, again, coming off the tail end of Tuesday being a business mindset day, a day to brainstorm or to get together with others. We have then moving into this energy of your financial troubles could be coming to an end. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. So be open Wednesday to, again, more conversations around opportunity, or just letting yourself feel that state of abundance. Even if you don't physically see stuff in your bank account just yet, have gratitude for the abundance that's coming in, because that's going to open up energy for more of it. Thursday, quieter astrology. The card is the Ace of Swords. So we have two aces this week, which I love. It's fresh starts, new beginnings, new ideas, new opportunities. The swords is all definitely opportunities. This I like to compare to one of my favorite 1960s movies is Where Angels Go, Trouble Follows. And one of the characters always says that she's got a scathingly brilliant idea. That was a horrible British accent. It's Haley Mills, which if you know the original Parrot Trap, that's who it is. I do better British than that, but not in that moment. This is a scathingly brilliant idea. And it kind of feels like it comes out of nowhere. It's that strike of inspiration. It's what Elizabeth Gilbert talks about in Big Magic, about the genius coming to visit you. And it's like this entity outside of yourself brings you this brilliant idea, or this brilliant turn of phrase, or this brilliant project, or just this inspiration to act on something. So really stay open on Thursday to that inspiration, because with the astrology being quieter, we're kind of more able to tap into the energy at large because we're not as distracted by the cosmic weather that's affecting us. So I would say it's a great day to meditate and see what comes forward. If you're not a person that listens to Abraham Hicks, where have you been? First of all, please YouTube that immediately after this. But one of the concepts that they talk about often is you don't act until inspiration arrives. And so you may have these intentions and these wishes and these manifestations that you're trying to call in. But the reason that meditation is so important, it's important in learning who you are. It's important in listening, tuning out the new noise and listening to your own thoughts. But it's really important to be able to allow the opportunity for those inspirational moments to come forward, and then you act. So I totally recommend starting your day, if you can, with a meditation, or at the very least do it like mid-afternoon, so that you can have the time and the space to act on something that comes forward for you. Because if you're meditating for bed, yes, it's a nice way to get like chilled out before you go to sleep. But if you have any inspiration that comes forward because it's the first time you've quieted your mind all day, you won't be able to act on it when the energy is fresh and there. So Thursday is a really good day for this. Please allow time for stillness and disconnect from the outside noise to see what comes through for you on this day, because I think it could be life-changing. Friday, moon moving into Gemini. Again, moon moves throughout the month. If you have a moon in Gemini, might be a little more in touch with your emotions. The rest of us, Gemini, more social. You might be called to kind of socialize, or vice versa. It's the twins, so it's got two sides of the coin. Might be called to turn within. It's kind of like it's a flip of a coin as to what it's going to be. Jekyll Hyde energy sometimes. But the card of the day, it's the King of Wands. So we are really kind of like coming into the seat of power over the course of this week. If you're following this advice and doing all the things and really utilizing the biggest thing that I have for this week, other than the full moon manifestations coming through on Monday, helping you review and tweak your ways of manifesting, is that Venus in Virgo for one last week. You could be at the seat of your throne on Friday. You're like, okay, I got this figured out. I can see the big picture. Wands are very spiritual. They're also very passion driven. So I love that after all this sort of like money talk earlier on in the week, it's like we find our way to find our, what do I want to say? Like you're just on your throne and in your power because of the work you've done around this abundance, but also because you found a passion to drive you forward. Because the calling in of abundance is so much more meaningful when you're doing it, like when your passions are what's driving that financial abundance. So this is like finding your absolute best footing in your passions that's going to just intensify that money work that you've been doing. Saturday, we have another Venus thing. Venus is opposite Saturn. So they're not playing as well together. This is maybe not the best day for that Venus work. Hopefully you've done it a little bit earlier in the week. But it is a good day to review the lessons that you're learning around this Venus and Virgo energy. So it's kind of like a last gasp of like, what did you learn? You know, we only have a couple more days of Venus and Virgo. So what do you learn about yourself when Venus is in an energy that feels like it wants to put its nose to the grindstone and get things organized and get things laid out and make lists and just structure things? Like, what does that look like for you? And depending on your natal astrology, it could be comfortable, it could be uncomfortable, but you're always going to learn something about yourself. So let's see, when did Venus move into Virgo? Moved into Virgo September 19th. So since September 19th, take a look. How have you been dealing with your finances, with your home aesthetic, with your personal aesthetic, with your love life? Has your mentality shifted slightly? What did you learn from that? Did it feel comfortable? Did it feel uncomfortable? Ultimately, it's about creating balance. The Two of Pentacles is about balancing things out, but it can also be about like juggling things. And when it's reversed, we might be called to focus in on one thing more than the others. So that doesn't mean that you necessarily completely drop the other ball, but you just are really focused on the ball that's in the air. So that's kind of what I'm getting here. Like, what ball is currently in the air? Or another way that I like to say this, if you're juggling a bunch of balls, that whole mindset of, I think it's said very often for parents, but I think it applies to all of us, where sometimes you're juggling a bunch of balls and it's not that you don't drop any, it's just that you have to know which ones are glass and which ones are rubber. And so this could be a day that you're realizing some of the balls that you're juggling are rubber and you can drop them and they'll be fine for a while. And maybe you go back and you pick them up later. But the ones that are glass, you need to really pay attention to. And especially with this being, again, the weekend before we move into another Venus sign, what do you really need to pay attention here? Like, this is like the do or die time. Like, what is it that you really need to structure that's still remaining? What outstanding loans or payments or whatever bills do you need to pay off? What do you need to really make sure is in order? Because if you drop that ball, it will break. That's that energy. Moving into, hang on, I'm going to go back to that card. This also feels like it could be a little bit of a windfall. Like, that you're not juggling as much because you have a little bit of cushion. That this, for this metaphor, if you have a little bit of a windfall of something coming in for you that is expected or not unexpected, it's like you're still juggling glass and rubber balls, but the floor beneath you is completely padded. So yeah, you should keep the glass ball in the air, but if you drop it, you've got a little cushion. So this could be a little bit of a financial cushion. Yeah, that's the other message that I'm getting from this card. So take which one of those resonates for you. Sunday, moon moving into Cancer. If you've got a moon in Cancer, I'm sorry. Because you're probably already really emotional. But you might be a little more in touch with your emotions on this day. And for the rest of us, you probably will be in touch with your emotions on this day. So if you're not comfortable with that, schedule a time to cry it out, because it'll bubble up in other areas of your life. But the card is the Wheel of Fortune. And I really, really feel like at the end of this story of this week, this is an upturn in our fortunes, especially when it comes to money. I think that if you do this right, using the last week of Venus and Virgo to your advantage, doing the hard work, getting things organized, getting things structured, you will see something turn around for the better. If not on Sunday, you get like the preliminary of the energy on Sunday. And then maybe as we move into Venus and Libra on Monday next week, you'll see a little more of the fiscal results. But this is really hopeful. And it's a major arcana card, which means that the universe has a lot of hands in. They've been moving stuff around. Pay attention. Ooh, this is an interesting message this is dropping in. Pay attention to what's in the forgotten corners of your life. And this could be energetically or physically, but I'm getting an image of like a box way in the back of someone's closet that has something that they really need, or it's a box full of money that they didn't even know was there. And if you are doing the work of Venus and Virgo this week, you clean out that closet and you reorganize stuff and you discover this money. Like, use that as the metaphor for what you're doing this week, because it feels like that's what this card is. This is a box of money in the back of your closet collecting dust that you didn't even know was there. Maybe it wasn't even yours. Maybe you moved into the apartment and it was already there. And like, it's, you're just discovering a treasure in a hidden corner. But there's some treasure in a hidden corner that you haven't examined, that if you're doing the work of cleaning the muck out of your life and reorganizing things, you will discover it this week. And again, that could be a physical thing, could be an emotional thing, could be a mental inspiration, but you have to clear out the muck and organize things. That's a great metaphor as well for the meditation, because you're organizing your thoughts. So it could be that the treasure that you find is a thought that you wouldn't have had if you hadn't have like cleared out the junk in your mind. That's what this week is about. And if you do that, there is some sort of reversal of fortune in the best of ways coming forward. Yeah, I love that for us. So that is the week ahead. Coming up next week, we do have Venus moving into Libra, as I've talked about this whole reading. And then on the same day, we also have Pluto going direct. And Pluto is one of those planets in our previous readings that I've talked about being like big affecting the entire world right now. So we'll talk more about that next week. And I'm going to dive into my personal reading. So I always like to start by thanking my subscribers. And normally I have this pulled up already, and I did not. So just give me a second to kind of type things in. So last week's reading winner was Holly, because it was Taylor Swift themed. So Holly, thank you for being a paid subscriber. You're not going to be on the list this week, but I appreciate you. And then I have to add back the person that I took off last week, which I again normally do. So let me just give me a second. Okay, Tracy. Okay, so also thanks to my other paid subscribers, Tracy, Jane, Sonia, Amanda, Francis, and Caitlin. We are going to do a spin of this wheel to find out who wins the reading. And if you feel called to stick around, it might be a portion of this reading that's also for you. But in all of my intention, it's a reading for Francis. So Francis, thank you for being a paid subscriber. I pulled out a different deck today, specifically knowing that I was going to need to use it for whoever won the personal reading. So this is called the Moon Child Tarot. It's a little more mystic, a little more ancient. That might mean that you're doing some work with sort of ancestors or past lives, or it might not, but that is kind of when I feel drawn to this deck the most, when there's sort of a past life or, more generational energy coming through the timeline. So that is the first thing that I have to say about your reading. And then we're going to dive into a past, present, future. I'm getting the feeling that Thursday's energy of meditate and get some messages is really important for you, because there are some energies in the ether that are trying to communicate, and that Mercury in Scorpio is going to give them the opportunity to reach out and communicate to you. So you might be having crazy dreams. You might be getting like random downloads in your meditations. And sometimes they look like they are, like really vivid, intense, like you're watching a movie. Like we want it to look like a psychic in a movie getting a download. And that's not always what it looks like. Sometimes it just looks as simple as you sit down in meditation and you can't stop thinking about doing this one thing or going to this one place or whatever. And that could be your intuition talking to you. Just like your mind gravitating constantly to things when you let your mind get still. So with that in mind, we'll move into the cards. Your first card in a recent past, we have the Queen of Swords. So we do have an energy of creating some really structured boundaries in your personal life, in your business life, in your mind, a structure in your life, like the way that you live your life on a day-to-day basis, that's really served you well. However, usually when this comes up in a recent past card, that means that you're kind of moving into a timeline that you don't want to be as rigid with your boundaries. Like, trust the fact that you've established boundaries and that you don't have to kind of shut the world out as much. Like, this feels like the drawbridge on the castle is what I always think of with the Queen of Swords. And that you have the power to draw that drawbridge up and completely shut everyone out. Or you have the power to let it down and like trust that you're capable of turning people away verbally without having that barrier between you and others. So I think that you've learned really good structured boundaries in your relationships. And there might be some habits that you've created while creating those boundaries that are kind of cutting you off from the outside world. And you may now be being called back into the world a little bit more. So that's not so much that you're like isolated in your castle, not letting anyone see you. And that's how you keep the boundaries in place. You're putting it into practice more in actual interactions. So the present card that's coming in is the Hanged Man reversed. So this is a period of waiting is coming to an end. So I feel like that you've been really patient with something. I'm not getting a really clear indicator of what it is. It could be a relationship that you've been patient, or it could be an opportunity that you've been patient to hear back on. That's the one I'm leaning a little more towards. Yeah, but the wait is almost over is what the Hanged One upright is. And that's under this time period. So I have a feeling that if you do look back at what you were kind of trying to call into your life or wish for in the Aries new moon at the end of March, you may not have those things in your life right now, but they're really close. Like the wait is almost over. So don't get too discouraged is what I'm getting from that. The near future is the Two of Cups, which is the coming together of sort of like a soulmate situation, whether it be romantic, platonic, or business. It's two aligned souls that feel resonant to one another coming together and creating something beautiful. This could have something to do with the opportunity you've been waiting to hear back on. Like, it feels like maybe if it's not a job opportunity, it might be a creative opportunity. It might be an opportunity just to like go and meet new people in some way. Like maybe there's like a social trip or something, or like a retreat that you applied for. There's an element of like whatever wait is over in the present moment could bring you to a meeting of like-minded souls in whatever form you're trying to manifest right now. So trust that, stay open. I think that's basically the gist of this reading. You've created boundaries, but you also kind of isolated yourself. Now you're learning to come back out into the world. So the wait for being social and connecting to others is over with this Hangman reversed. And because you have healthy boundaries now, the people that don't resonate for you, you can very calmly and politely turn away without having to pull up a drawbridge and completely shut yourself out. And then you'll find people that really resonate for you because you're vibrating at a higher level. There's a higher resonance to you because you're no longer putting up with people that are lowering your vibration. So good luck with whatever what is you're calling in. And underneath the deck, we have the Page of Wands reversed. So there is an element here of passion, wanting to come forward and maybe not quite awakening. I feel like this connection is going to awaken some passion in you. So if it is a romantic one, good for you. If it's a business one or a friendship, it could be that it awakens some sort of like creative passion or just passion for what you're doing. So not a bad thing, but it does feel like there is something about connecting to the outside world that reawakens this passion. So do not let yourself shut the world out. You have done a really good job about knowing what your boundaries are, and you don't have to shut out the world for that. Shutting out the world is not a boundary. Shutting out the world is what we do to learn how to structure our boundaries. And then as we move forward, you can connect with people and you can not accept the energy that violates your boundaries, but you can do it in a way that's still like communicating with the outside world. All right. And that this feels very fitting for moving into Venus and Libra next week. So good luck with that. Good luck to anyone else that found resonance with this personal reading. Again, if you want to be a part of the drawing next week, drop at least $1 in the Tip Your Reader link below, or become a paid subscriber for just $5 a month, and you get entered into all of the readings throughout the month. And if you want to know more about the other aspects of this blog, check out your profile and click on or off whatever it is that you want to see. Thank you for being here, and I hope you have a beautiful week.